Brunson Smith. How you doing, man?
Doing super well. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, I'm glad you joined. I was thinking about so the last time I saw you in person was sitting in a little church in Phuket, Thailand.
Yeah,
So it might have actually been the only place I've seen you in person, but yeah,
that's
pretty
right.
crazy story. So I think just to set the stage there is we walk in, you're sitting there and obviously like helped out with a chair or something, help my little boy with trying to sit down, and you're sitting with this cute girl, and so I'm assuming that you guys are together, and that was not the case. So tell me how you found yourself in Thailand.
Well, me and my sister decided to go and study Muay Thai, the Thai boxing. So yeah, we did a little trip to Japan on our way there, and yeah, so funny because everywhere we'd go, it was good though because there was a lot of guys there that were hitting on my sister, and
Yeah.
and uh, and we deterred some of them, so that was probably for the best. But
That's great. So okay, so I always say that wrong. So it's Muay Thai. I want to say Mai
Muay Thai,
Thai. Muay
yeah,
Thai.
Muay
All right.
Thai. Uh-huh.
Okay, so you guys had stopped in Japan, but you landed there. But the whole purpose was get to Thailand, right? For this specific training.
Yeah, exactly. Well, when I was like 17, I had this philosophy of a list of things that I wanted to do. And I was like, oh, it'd be so cool to learn all these skills. And I don't know where that came from. I suspect, have you ever read a book called Carry On, Mr. Bowditch?
No, but I'm going to now.
Yeah, it's a kid's book. Like,
Okay.
I think it won the 1940 something Pulitzer Prize or whatever. Um, Not written really for adults, but I read it as a kid, and it's a true story about this guy named Nathaniel Bowditch, and he literally just was born in the worst circumstances possible. This is like pre-Revolutionary War, and they live there in I think right in Baltimore actually, and they're kind of on the sea. And at one point, he's like, you know what? I can change my circumstances by changing the kind of person that I am. So he goes and he starts learning Latin, and then he studies mathematics, and he just becomes this like he develops this insatiable thirst for knowledge, and just acquires every skill he can acquire. And by the end of his life, he writes these really famous things. Like he developed all these sea navigation skills that were used up until we had GPSs. And he kind of wrote the book on sea navigation. And he spoke like 12 different languages or something crazy. And he learned fighting, and he learned, I mean, just like all these random skills that he had acquired. And he actually, I think he was one of the early first people ever to get like an honorary doctorate from Harvard, but never
Okay.
stepped foot in a school. He dropped out when he was like 6 to go apprentice because his parents couldn't afford to even have him in school because they needed him to help bring in food for the family. And so it's like that story to me was so inspiring growing up. Anyway, so yeah, somewhere around 17, I think that and among a few other things, I had this like kind of this list of like, this is what it would take for Brunson to become the person that he wants to become. And I started chipping away at that list. And one of them was I was kind of a weenie as a kid. Like I really was. I was like scared of I was kind of scared of my own shadow. And um I I was terrified of physical confrontation. Just terrified.
Mm.
Never like I could defend myself. I would avoid a fight at all costs. And it's not because I was maybe even afraid of my parents or anything. It was like, no, I just didn't want to get hurt. And I thought I'd humiliate myself anyway. So I had a lot of these insecurities, and it led me to often back down from situations where I should have stood up for myself. Anyway, so that was kind of where I was like, no, I can learn my way through this. So yeah, went to Thailand, studied Muay Thai for 3 months really intensively. And it's and to say that I've now I'm a master fighter, no. But I have
Spent
found
3 months.
myself, yeah, I have found myself in situations already where I thought this could go to a fight, and I was like, okay, that's fine. Just
If we
like
have to, right?
exactly, like yeah, like I've been hit enough times, and I fought people bigger than you, kind of thing. Like, and they were fighters, like actual fighters, and you're not. Like I'm feeling very comfortable at my odds here. So
Oh, what a cool skill, and not even like you're saying, not even just the actual physical skill of it, but just the mental strength, the mental confidence that
totally,
comes from it. Yeah.
totally, yeah, that kick of confidence too. I heard that was a thing, and I do believe a lot of it's fake, by the way. Like I believe that I'm gonna get so much hate for this, but I've met people that studied, kung fu for 6 years, and they feel like they're just lethal. And I fought some of those people, and I can tell you right now that I've not found that to be the most effective fighting style.
The disciplines
However,
are different, right? Like they really
yes,
are. Yeah.
yeah, well, it's like martial arts is awesome, but and I don't know, okay, like karate has got to be good because Conor McGregor, like that's his background is
Hmm.
karate, and like and you apparently everyone's like you can see it in the way he moves, he's like a karate guy. However, I think that a lot of people do they go find maybe pretty mid teacher who doesn't know what they're doing and teaches them how to just, if someone chokes you out, you like throw them on the ground, like, and you all these things. I'm like, no, when you're fighting, there's so much animal instinct. You're not going to have the time to find their pinky and like bend it a certain way.
Yep.
However, even though that's the case, there's kind of a placebo effect with it. Like your confidence goes up like crazy because you just believe that you can defend yourself. And most of them have never been in a fight, so they would never know. And that was the thing too, is I actually ended up doing a fight in the ring because I wanted to see. I'm like, yeah, like I have all this theory. Like, of course I'm going to do a flying Superman punch and, the spinning backhand and all these, like, I had all these cool moves. And then I got in the ring. Ironically, the only one that did, like, one of the few that did stick was a flying punch. But, like, it's just funny because all of these things that I thought that I was okay at disappeared. Only the things that I'd mastered actually stayed in that ring with me. My defense was really good. My offense was terrible. I'd practiced the same calf kick 1,000 times, and I used it, and I knocked this guy down several times with it. But all the other moves that I was only okay at vanished. So anyways, yeah, the confidence side of it now too was like, yes, there's part of it where you think you can fight, and that's confidence. Having fought and winning and getting the crap kicked out of you and knowing that you can take a hit, like that was a whole different level to me as well. I was like, okay, I know I can take a punch. I know I can take a lot of punches actually. So
in your training, we did a couple classes, right? So I've got the very, the intro to Muay Thai. And so we took our boys once in Bangkok and once in Phuket and had such a phenomenal experience with it. And it's interesting because I reflect on it a lot. And my oldest specifically is 14. And he's like, I got to find a place. This was something that he really enjoyed. Yeah. So, for me, and I'd love to kind of just get if it's similar, we hired a coach. And actually, for the 6 of us, we had 3 coaches. We'd kind of pair off, and you practice kicks and you practice punches, you practice, body positioning, and it was just one-on-one. What I didn't get back was anything coming back at us. It was always like, hey, we're going to practice these punch. In your training, did you have kind of live simulated someone's coming back at you?
Yeah, and almost to a fault with fighting. And this is, going to kind of minutia here, but fighting is offense. I mean, and I thought, because there's no such thing as having such a good defense you're going to win a fight. Eventually, you have to throw a punch, right? Like,
that's a good point.
Defense, there's kind of this diminishing return, right? Like, even if you're amazing, you only need one good hit and you're unconscious, right? You get hit just right in the jaw, doesn't matter. You could have blocked 1,500 different punches, but one of them will still knock you out. So at the end of the day, being able to punch is much more valuable than being able to defend. However, for me, I'm maybe just not an aggressive enough personality. So I trained it. Like, I had my coach and I was like, I want you to hit me at 80% power. And he's done 250 fights. He's on his way to the UFC. 80% power almost knocked me out once. Yeah.
Okay.
With this, like, I went and blocked with my arm and shoulder. For the folks that can't see, I'm like pulling my elbow up, and I've got my glove on this, like right next to my ear. And through that, he almost knocked me out once. And, just kind of like thought I would duck. Instead, I went and blocked. And so he hit really hard. And it it rung my bell pretty bad. So like, actually, I did a whole bunch of that. I was like, I want to practice where for 5 minutes you just hit me, and I have to either duck or parry or dodge. And I got really good at. So in my fight, that's what's funny is we did so much practice with controlling. I'm kind of like a Muhammad Ali fan. I was like, it's so cool to be able to just like not get hit.
Right?
Exactly. Yeah, like that movement where you're like, you get so dialed into where the body's gonna be. And so he did this with me all the time. In my fight, the guy was a boxer, right? We both had the same amount of Muay Thai experience, but he was 6'2". He had about almost 40 pounds on me. He was a big boy. And I'm 5'9", for context, right? So I had zero chance of hitting him.
Right.
I would have punched him once, and he got me so good in the face. And I was within 3 inches still of hitting him. Like, but
just the reach.
Exactly,
reach matters.
Reaches. And that's the thing. So it's funny. People are like, oh, like, would you fight that guy? I'm like, no, he's too tall. Oh, but you're like, he's skinny. I'm like, but he's too tall. Like, that reach goes a long way.
Literally.
And, there's fighters like Mike Tyson who've been able to overcome that. But anyways, my defense is what saved me in that fight for sure. Was, that I had such good instincts for, and it's funny because I kind of like locked up for the first round, but in round 2, he did not touch me.
Wow.
And he gassed himself out. He was exhausted. And that's what ended the fight, was he was just too tired. Couldn't really defend himself. And
So when we talked, I don't think that your plan was like, when, at the initial stages your plan wasn't necessarily to go fight. It was to train in it. And, it wasn't necessarily going to culminate in you fighting.
yeah, I was really opposed to fighting because I was like, you only need one good hit and you've got brain damage. You only need one good hit and you can jack up your neck permanently. I just don't. I have a lot of world that I want to see, but I recognize that a lot of that narrative was fear based. Like the more I was like truthful with myself, I was like, no, I'm just scared to death of getting in the ring with somebody because
Hmm.
it's an environment I can't control. I'm out of control, and the only thing like the two best case scenarios is I get knocked out and there's no brain damage, and the next best scenario is that I win, but I don't think that's likely. I kind of knew that I'd end up fighting someone bigger than me. I don't know why. I just kind of felt that way.
And it came true.
Um, yeah, and exactly right. And yeah, it was funny. They actually paired me up with a guy that was way smaller than me, and they're like, you know what? No, nope, that's too big of a gap. We're gonna have you go for a bigger guy instead. And I was like, oh dang it. So, anyways, it all worked out, and I really do feel like I had some extra, maybe some divine help on that, because I was like, I want to face my fear, but I don't want to get hurt doing it.
All right,
Um,
so you got to tell us just
yeah,
whether you want to start from the beginning or just kind of that last little bit where the win kind of happened.
yeah.
Because I think I remember reading on your Instagram post or something that it wasn't likely or it wasn't, from the beginning you were going to crush this guy. I think it happened towards the end, and it, like most things
Oh
do,
yeah,
where yeah.
yeah.
So walk me through that.
Well, and yeah, there's two pieces here. So the first one is like I have rules of learning, right? And I have a list of them. And if you want, I'd even be happy to share them here on the
I'd love
podcast.
to. Yeah.
But one of the rules is have your graduation ceremony. Like with whatever you're learning, you have to have an event that's coming up that motivates you to want to really excel. So one of those things was I'm learning this stuff and it's awesome, but until I know that I'm gonna have to face the music, am I really learning it?
Hmm.
And my practice got very sincere the second I set up for that fight. I I was dreaming about it, I was thinking about it, I was strategizing, and I was like, you know what? I have to use my noggin here to like be smarter than this. Anyways, it was this whole thing. The odds against me were 10-1
Oh
from the
wow.
betting.
Okay.
So nobody thought I was going to win. Like it was, in fact, I think there was high odds that he would knock me out in the first round,
Oh wow.
and he seemed highly motivated to do that. I I never asked him. He was really not happy with me after I went to go congratulate him on the fight and just check he's okay, and he wouldn't even talk to me. But so I don't know what his goal was, but I'm almost positive that he was supposed to knock me out in the first round
Hmm.
because he did not hold back at all. He wasn't going for 3 rounds. It was crystal clear. He was like, I have to knock him out in the first round because the gap in size was so big. I mean, literally people like laughed when we walked on because it was like, what the heck is this guy doing fighting someone so big?
Right.
And he was ripped and like, I mean, really actually quite a physical specimen. It was quite intimidating. And so yeah, when we stepped in the ring, his coach is like, knock him out. And I heard him screaming that over and over, knock him out, knock him out. And so he wasn't using leg work. He wasn't fighting smart. He was like, I have to knock this guy unconscious in the first round. Otherwise, no one will even call it a win because
Mm.
there's too big of a gap. So that was intimidating. I went to kind of this weird zone. I actually don't like how I felt when I stepped in the ring. I was so disconnected from the fight because I'd just been meditating. I was like trying to like disconnect from the experience because I was just terrified. Like I was
Yeah.
as scared as I've ever been. And like I hate saying this, but I don't think I've ever been more terrified in my life ever. Like to date, it was the most scared I've ever been in my entire life. Just because it was like this guy could kill me. And in Thailand, like nobody cares. Like an American gets like paralyzed, is like meh.
That's
Like
a good
they have
point.
no legal repercussions. They and in the U.S. this would never happen. You would never pair someone up who's like 2 or 3 weight classes ahead of somebody else
It
ever,
just wouldn't happen. Yep. You're
ever,
right.
ever, ever. Yeah, and that's I mean when we stop fights from happening, right? Because it's
Hmm.
like yeah, it's just dangerous. And so I'm scared to death. I step in the ring and I'm like trying to find my Zen zone. And the cool thing, and this is actually another little piece of learning, is that I don't know quite how to fit this into my list, but there's something with pain that is so powerful when it comes to learning. It wasn't until he hit me really hard once that I finally kicked into gear. Literally, I locked up, and I'm not. I hate my fight. I don't like showing people the fight. I have like a really grainy recording. I haven't published it because I'm actually embarrassed about it because the first round was so embarrassing. I just sat there and like just locked up. I was
Hmm.
dodging well, I was defending myself well, but I was so locked up because I just was scared. Like it was like fear paralysis. And then he hit me so stinking hard in the face. I dropped my glove a little bit. I misread the movement, and he hit me so hard in the face, and my head spun, and I was like, I can only take one more of those. I'm sure I'll go down. And it hurt really bad. And that pain just crystallized everything, and I went to a different mode. And then it was like the fear kind of went away. I was like, oh, he hit me as hard as he could. Okay, I can take that.
Kind of
I
like
can do that
that's,
again.
I just, the worst that could happen just happened.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
yeah. All
Yeah,
right.
exactly. And I was like, okay, yeah, like let's go. And the thing is, like, I was raised on a farm. I've been kicked in the face by cows, and I've been bitten by horses, and like I've been hurt before, right? I don't love
Mhm.
pain, but like I've been hurt pretty bad
You're
before. And like,
familiar with it.
yeah, I
Sure.
was like, this isn't that bad. It's not that bad. Like, I
Hmm.
can take this, you know? And then after that, the game just changed for me. Going into round two, I didn't fight super well, but I knocked him down twice. I had lots of points on him because I knocked him down twice, which is like
Hmm.
in Muay Thai is a huge number of points in your favor, even though I wasn't hitting him very much.
Mostly from lower body stuff, or were you?
Calf kicks
Oh,
over and
okay.
over again.
All
Again,
right.
he was arrogant. He was overextending. He was a boxer. He would lean into that front foot, and I'd kick his calf. And I mean, one time I kicked him, it hurt him bad. I saw it in his eyes that like he was hurting. And the second time I kicked him, it dropped his foot underneath him, and then he tripped another time. And it was this whole thing. But yeah, as it accumulated, he probably, had I not ended the fight in the second round, he might have beat me on points just because he hit me so many times and I just couldn't reach him.
Gotcha.
Maybe, I mean, hard to say. I don't know what the point system works for like knocking someone to the ground. But anyways, as we go on, second round comes in, and I'm just like, I don't know, just feeling some kind of way, not afraid anymore. And I jump in, I do this flying punch, and I hit him in the face, and his head snaps back, and it hits his shoulder. And I think he was trying to like roll his shoulder in, some weird instinct. I don't know what he was doing, but trying to roll his shoulder in to protect his face. Misread the movement. I think he thought I was going to come in for a left hook, and I went for a right flying punch. And so he brought his shoulder up, so I hit his chin, glanced off his chin, and hit his shoulder and dislocated it. And that's what ended the fight.
Wow.
Yeah. So, and I'll be honest, I was like so relieved because I was like, it just was raw. Like it was
Yeah.
such a, and some people get high on it. I really didn't. I did
Uh-huh.
not love that feeling of like one of us has to go unconscious for this fight to end. You know what I
Oof.
mean?
Yeah.
And like I just didn't, it was weird. I was like, I had so much empathy. I'm like, I truly didn't want to hurt him.
Uh-huh.
I was like, I don't want to beat you to a pulp. I don't have enough like inner rage. I'm not angry at you. Like I have no reason to hate you. And so for me, I think that's what I realized too, is that I'm probably not a natural born fighter. Because for me, the idea of knocking someone out is not fun. It's
Sure.
like, yeah, like why would I want to hurt you and
Uh-huh.
put you in like and potentially hurt your brain even,
Which is hard because there is something special. So I haven't had much experience, Muay Thai, that I told you that I had 2 sessions. I
Mm-hmm.
wrestled in high school and junior high just a little bit, was nothing phenomenal, but
Yeah.
there is something really special about like one-on-one, my strength versus your strength, my
Yeah.
technique versus your strength. That is different than a team environment. Both are good, but there is something unique about that one-on-one environment that I
Oh
think
man.
probably teaches you more about yourself than anything else, because there's no one to bail you out. It's you. It's you. I think that's really cool.
And incredibly vulnerable. I mean, I couldn't agree more. I did wrestling a little bit in high school. I was not good at it. Same thing. I hated it. I hated that it was just me. I like playing as part of a team. I like playing like my one role really well and
Uh-huh.
letting other people compensate for my weaknesses. And in fighting, it's like it's all you.
Yeah.
If your defense is bad, you will suffer. There's no one else that can step in and do your defense for you. If
Yeah.
your striking is bad, they can't step in and do that for you. And I think it was a journey of my soul where it was like, yeah, facing that was really, really like probably one of the best things I've done for my mental growth and my confidence in myself of like, yes, I can do hard things. And I hate admitting this too, but I had at least 3 times where I was like, I could have an injury. Like my hand kind of hurts, I guess. Like, yeah, I was like, my brain was 24/7
Trying to
thinking
get,
of
it's the fight
ways.
or flight, right?
Yeah,
Like, get
yeah,
out of
like
here.
it was really tough. I never took it too seriously because I'm kind of grateful I had enough pride of like, I'm not going to be the guy that like weenies out and doesn't do the fight. And I was like, I need to do this.
Hmm.
But my brain literally 24/7 was like, okay, but what if this happens? Like almost hoping I'd get hurt, get
Right.
injured just so enough to get in the ring, which is stupid. Like I want to get hurt so I can avoid getting hurt. Like that doesn't make any sense, but the brain is just does its own weird thing. So anyways, it was very insightful for me.
It's such an interesting insight, like, because I think that in life we do that. Before you take a big shot at doing something, for me, what's top of mind is, our story. Last year, we sold kind of everything we owned.
Mm-hmm.
Quit my, high paying job that I had a lot of success and really enjoyed, and we just left. And I thought about how many times my brain tried to get out of that and tried to quit, this really expansive, really awesome opportunity for our family. But, all the time leading up to it. And I've told everybody my biggest kind of panic attack I've ever had in my life was on the flight from JFK to Oslo last year, when I'm realizing like I've got all 6 of us on a plane and we're doing this. And I literally was like, I got to get off this plane. Melody, what are we doing? And trying to
Yeah.
like think of all the things I could do to get out of this. it's interesting how much the brain fights us when it's pushing us to do, when we're probably in some of the
Absolutely.
biggest growth places of our lives. That's crazy.
Well, and what you said is so like I think is so critical too, is the biggest growth places. It's when you know you're in the right spot if your brain is going haywire.
Uh,
Like you know something good's happening. You know your
mhm,
body has gone, this is the point where I'm actually growing. If you feel mildly uncomfortable, it's like, yeah, like you're kind of maintaining.
mhm.
You're doing your
Little
maintenance
incremental
lifting.
growth, right? Yeah,
Yeah.
just
Your
or yeah,
brain going
maintenance.
haywire, going like, get me the crap out of here. Like, please. I'll pay every dollar in my bank account. Like I am stuck in a rock and a hard place. Man, that's a cool thing, especially if you can do it in a somewhat controlled environment.
Uh-huh.
And for me, like I'm grateful that I was actually in a controlled environment. Yes, there was risk, but most likely a ref is going to stop a fight if he's killing me.
Uh-huh.
But I got to have the experience of true like fear of death without actually being, you know, facing death. And
Well,
that was really cool for me.
and in a place that you have no control, or you have only so much control. You can't
Hmm.
control that entire outcome because someone's
Yeah.
literally trying to hurt you on the other side.
Yeah.
And so I think that's something that I've really noticed too, is that in my life and my boys, I have 4 boys, and watching them grow, like everybody wants to be in a controlled environment.
Yeah.
And when you're out of control, you try to get back to a place where you have control again. And then we use all sorts of tactics. But I think there's a huge benefit in finding places where you don't have control of the whole thing, and realizing that you can trust your instincts, your training, your education, or just, your God-given talent to figure it out. I think that's a really important thing to do.
Yeah. No, totally. Yeah. I think having that reckless abandon where you have to say, I'm going to surrender to this river or it will destroy me
Uh,
is so powerful. And that's true, right? Like you can't jump out of that airplane. You have two choices. Either you're going to rip yourself to pieces or you just go take the deep breath and say, um, surrender. There's actually this quote now. Have you seen Dune?
yeah.
Okay, this quote, and you probably recognize this, but I think it's so funny because I don't know, like, yeah, as an author, I'm like, oh, yeah, like he wrote this for like literary device to, use as part of the book. I'm like, it's actually so profound and is super tied to like, Eastern philosophy. Really famous quote from the movie, but I must not fear. Fear is the mind killer. Fear is
Uh,
the little death that brings total obliteration. I will face my fear. I will permit it to pass over me and through me. And when it has gone past, I will turn the inner eye to see its path. Where the fear has gone, there will be nothing, only I will remain. And it's like, that to me was like, oh my gosh. And the more I actually have now is my screensaver because I need that constant reminder. But it's like, I will face my fear. I will let it pass through me. Like you cannot fight the fear. You can't resist it. You have to just let it flow right through. You have to experience those emotions. Like let yourself accept the terror, let it wash over you and go, all I'll do is just watch it. I'll watch it take its path from my head all the way to my toes and observe as it washes through me and realize at the end, it's nothing and only I remain. At the end, it's just me. Like there's just me. And I think that's so cool. And like I think there's this idea of surrender. And, and one of the pieces I love about that quote too is fear is the little death that brings total obliteration.
uh,
People will, you ever seen those videos of people who like actually hurt themselves more by being afraid of something, right? They
oh yeah.
overreact and they,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, how many car crashes do we have a year where people get scared and they overcorrect in their car and flip the car and roll it?
Yeah, but
It's
yeah,
the same thing. Like being controlled by fear actually will hurt you worse. But if you let it pass through you and over you and go, only I remain, yeah, I think it's a powerful method for letting yourself be, that fear actually has
that's
a
what
path.
drives you. Yeah, I
Yeah.
totally agree.
If you're scared, you're on the right path.
One of my favorite authors is Ryan Holiday, who writes
Yeah.
so much about stoicism, right?
Hmm.
And I can't remember, it's got to be in Obstacle is the Way, but he talks about, emotions, that emotions are human. So fear, anger, all these things, like it's okay to be angry. It's okay to be afraid. Those are human things. It's okay to rage. It's okay to, punch the wall, but don't pretend that that does anything about the situation you're involved in. Don't
Hmm.
pretend that that's any part of the solution. And so kind of like that, I mean, they're different ideas, but they kind of tie in together. Is let the fear happen, let it pass over, let it invade you, but then also, like, what am I going to do next? Because, like acting out of a place like that doesn't do, the fear doesn't actually get you closer to where you're trying to go. I love it, man. That's
Yeah.
great. Okay. So, I love that story, but I want to touch on a little bit about how you, like, not necessarily how you afforded or, what you're doing
Hmm.
financially to get there, but you live kind of a digital nomad life. And
Yeah.
so have you always been involved in entrepreneurship and hit, or have you been an employee, but, like where did this all start?
When I was 11, I was out washing windows, and that was how I made my dough. I kind of got bit with a bug. I think what really happened, there's multiple things. One is I'm kind of ADHD, right? For me, my brain just goes kind of crazy if I'm stuck in a monotonous job. Truly, I life is not great for me. If
Okay.
I have to work 9 hours a day, I would rather live in a van under the bridge, and I mean this sincerely, than work a job every day where I was just miserable.
Hmm.
I went to I go to dark places. I don't know why it is, but if I feel like I was given these gifts, and if I can't use them, and my only value that I bring to this company is something you could train a monkey to do. Like, I did one job at a warehouse that was like that, and awesome people. There's nothing wrong. It was just that every skill that I developed in my life meant nothing. Just my ability to show up and just twist these things onto the right pieces. And oh man, that was a rough thing for me. And I tried to do it because I was like, I kind of need to like learn this. And I've kind of accepted that that's just not how I tick. I'd rather have extraordinary risk and but be able to do something that I believe in. And it's not like fear of hard work either. I love working hard. I love working long hours. I love physical work too. I just want to be able to use my brain and use, I think, the gifts that I've developed. So from a young age, I kind of realized that. I realized that money is just as simple as give someone what they want, they'll give you what you want. It's not rocket science. You don't have to go find a job. You just have to give someone what they want. People want to clean windows. Awesome. Well, how to get more money? Well, I can find people who want it more, or it's worth more to them. So I went and started washing windows in Jackson Hole and Yellowstone and places where the average income is extremely high, and I would charge 5x the prices. And it's funny because all these people are just slash each other to pieces in Idaho Falls, at my hometown,
Yeah.
and fighting over a $200 account. And I'm like, yeah, I just made $1,000 washing a cabin up in Yellowstone. It took me like an afternoon. And so kind of there's that type of stuff. I like seeing things differently. I like finding the gap. Um, and I've done a bunch of random things as far as financially how I've been able to make this work. I've probably spent cumulatively around 2 years abroad, maybe three, and it's been beautiful. And the thing too is that I've gotten creative. I found online gigs. I find money where I can find it. Lately, I've been building. I'm kind of becoming a believer in building hard skills that are valuable online. Again, what's something that someone needs right now? I do podcasting. So I have one of my clients right now who said, "Oh, I want to start a podcast. I'm just terrified of being an interviewer. That scares me to death. I can't host the podcast." I was like, "Hey, no worries. You can pay me to co-host it with you. Awesome, done deal." Right? I gave someone what he wanted. He gave me what I wanted, and it's a remote job.
Oh,
So
perfect.
that's part of it. The last thing I'll say on traveling is if anyone's listening, going like, "Oh, I wish I could go travel and go to Thailand and do Muay Thai and whatever," I will say it's so much cheaper than you think it is. Like, if what you have to do is save, then do it. And I think what I've really become a big believer in is we've just been indoctrinated so heavily to accept this path of like stable income, stable income. It's like we preach it, and by miserable people. Like, and it's so funny how people are like just unhappy, but they're so scared to death of leaving their stable job. And there might be a time and a place. And again, I don't know, and I'm only speaking for Brunson. I don't know what the path is. I just know that what's worked for me is I will work really, really hard for a summer if I have to. And I think I spent, well, and I'll share some numbers here. I think I spent a total of, it was either 6 or 7 grand. That included my flights, my food. That's 5 hours a day of Muay Thai training. That included my trip to Japan and all the fun stuff we did and eating sushi 18 times a day. Like, all of it. That was 5 countries, I believe. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 or 6 countries. 3 months of Muay Thai. I ate like a king. Did not spare any expense. I'm doing cold plunges. I'm doing like deprivation chambers. I spent money like, didn't even care. That was like 6 or 7 grand for 3 months. And if you put that in perspective in terms of like America's cost of living, it's like, hmm, I could live like a king with 7 grand. And so the question you have to ask yourself is how long would it take you to earn $7,000? It's doable. Go
What's
do a hard job that no one else wants to do. Go sell door to door or whatever, and just go crank a bunch of cash in, and then just go.
It's interesting too, because you're single, and $7,000 for 3 months. I think you would hear someone from my stage of life or a little bit younger, but like, yeah, I've got kids.
Mm,
And the truth is like, okay, 7 grand. like it wouldn't, maybe it's double or even triple if I've got my family of 6, but
Hmm.
that's still not a crazy amount of money.
Yeah.
And that's what we found too. I actually had this conversation yesterday is that, well, there's a lot to talk about here, but, um, we budgeted pretty tightly. We were big Dave Ramsey fans when we first
Hmm.
got married, and
Yeah.
we're super into that. And we've evolved, and a lot has changed, but such a great basis of saying like, well, figure it out. Here's what this is going to cost, and go from it. And so we saved for 5 years to be able to take our family of 6, across
Hmm.
the world for we were shooting for a year and hit 10 and a half months, and that we came home for football to get the kids back in sports and some things like that. But we hit our budget exactly what we had planned for. And I think about that a lot because it's actually a simple process. Like, figure out what it's going to cost, save it up, and go do it. There's not much more to it than that, other than all the things that go on, like we've been talking about, fear-based, and all the worries and leaving a stable job. Um, that's kind of the part that I'm in. I'm in such a weird space that I haven't been in. So I worked in corporate sales for about 15 years and
Hmm.
was an employee and loved it and learned so much. There was always a part of me that, I have really vivid memories of driving to work at 5:30 in the morning and just really like feeling like my soul was being sucked out of me. And I have to also take a set aside and say there were times where I felt that way, but also knowing how blessed we were. Money is good, insurance is good. It paid for my kids' births and any little surgeries or things here and there. But being on this side of having taken this big plunge, done something different, I'm realizing there's so many other ways to make money and build a life that you want. I don't think there's a right or wrong way to do it. And I do think though that like, if you want something, you can just go do it. That's the beauty of living in this country and having the opportunities we have, that I don't think we say that a lot. We say words like that, but I don't know if people really internally like believe that you
Yeah.
really can do whatever you want. You just have to make a plan and go get it.
Totally. And I had a friend actually I recently interviewed about this, and he was like, "Yeah, we've created a society where normally there was an even balance between all the different facets of life. That's how life is. However, in our society, we've hyper fixated on two: the state, meaning like social experiences, and the economy.
Mm-hmm.
Like everyone bases their whole life on the economy. Well, what are you doing? Oh, I'm like, what do you do? Oh, I'm a carpenter because I make money, and whatever you talk about, it always seems to come back to money or the state in some way. Not
It's true.
like not chasing what you feel, and not what chasing what you believe in. And money is a giant illusion. And people have asked me, they're like, well, have you made it? Have you made it financially? I'm like, I don't believe you ever can. You give me a number where I can out earn my problems. Doesn't
Mm-hmm.
exist. I could be a multi-billionaire today and lose it today. Lawsuit, who knows? Like, money is completely an illusion. And we keep thinking if we have more of it, somehow our problems will just magically vanish. And it's completely a lie. It's not true. And I think people maybe also ask me like, will I have regrets? I don't know. I don't know. Maybe I'll hate this path. I doubt it, because I've lived in a way that has been really true to my, like, the most true part of myself, which is I wanted to become something. I didn't want to get rich. Money motivates me so little. All it's good for is buying experiences. That's it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm grateful I was able to earn money so I could go out and do this. And that's all it is to me. And now I kind of love just the experience of how people grow. Like, again, I produce podcasts for other people. I love seeing people be successful in their podcasting. And so to me, I get to do a job that I find fulfillment in. And if today it made me very little money, I'd be like, okay, doesn't matter. Like, it really doesn't, because I'm still learning. As long as I have enough money to continue learning and not slow down my progress of who I'm becoming, man, I'm happy. I don't care if I live in a van, and I have. I lived in my Jeep for like a few months cumulatively, just because I was just too poor to afford a place. But along the way, I'm learning all these great things and becoming something awesome. That to me has always been worth more than just a big bank account. So
When when was the first so you graduated from college, and it was that kind of where you decided to take your first shot at some kind of digital nomad life, maybe even before it was cool?
so funny enough, I never graduated college. I dropped out and then re-enrolled and dropped out, then re-enrolled and then dropped out, and then did that two more times. So
I love it.
and I
I
keep on
love
doing.
it.
I will admit, and don't tell BYU Idaho, but they've got fantastic student benefits, so they kind of motivate me to want to re-enroll and not take classes. Um,
And just to get your .edu email so you can get discounts.
Discounts, the phone plan. Are you kidding? Oh man, there's lists of things.
Right.
So, and yeah, all the software you get for free, amazing. Is
Exactly.
that messed up? I don't know. And I do take, like, I think last semester I took like 2 finance classes, and I'm just like, but I was there because I wanted to learn.
That's a great
And that was
point.
so different.
Mm-hmm.
I'm the only person in the room that was like fiercely taking notes. He's like, this isn't on the test, but it's very interesting. And I'm sitting there taking notes. Nobody else is.
Mm-hmm.
Because everyone else didn't care. They just wanted to get their piece of paper. And that's a whole different tangent about why I hate traditional
Society and
education. But yeah.
yeah.
Um, sorry, and I already forgot the question.
No, so your first kind of
Yes.
digital nomad moment.
That happened when I got a job working for a company, and they just paid me kind of a stipend to start developing online products for them. And the first thing I did is move to Guatemala. So I just moved to Guatemala. I went and learned Spanish. Again, one of the things on the list. And that was probably my first real experience. I traveled just a little bit before that, but I hadn't really taken the plunge. And it was, well, I'll tell this story really quickly, but I like making messes for myself and seeing if I can figure it out. And so I put myself in situations frequently where I don't plan enough. I try to plan enough so I don't die. That's kind of the goal, but I
It's a
don't
good
want to
move.
plan so much to ruin. Yeah, we want to prevent that if possible. But I want to give myself enough room to actually have a growth experience. And I get teased a lot. People are like, oh, you vacation all the time. I'm like, I haven't been on vacation since I came back to Idaho. Idaho is my vacation.
That's a good point.
It is not vacation, what happened in Guatemala, to go, I'm going to book a flight. I have no idea who I'm going to stay with. I have no idea how I even get to the airport to the city that I want to go to. I have no idea how I'm going to find a Spanish teacher. Like, you just don't know much, right? And like, you just show up and, and I finagled some things right before I took off, and I ended up finding a family to live with who did not speak English. And I lived in their home with them for 3 months. And you learn Spanish really quick when you're living with a Guatemalan family for 3 months. And so I put myself in complete chaos and let myself sort it out. Now, is that an ADHD thing? Probably, right? I thrive in chaos. I thrive in confusion. But I do believe in the concept. Regardless of what your personality type is like, put yourself in messy things and let yourself figure it out, because it will boost your confidence like crazy. You can drop me in the middle of nowhere now. Any country, you pick a country, just drop me there and give me nothing and I'll be just fine. Might have some scary experiences, might have some sketchy stuff happen, but that's confidence to me. And I've been in crazy situations now where people are like, oh my gosh, did you see this? Or did that happen? Or that happen? I'm like, nah, I've just been there before. Like, this is all old news. Someone comes out screaming at me, this or that happens. I'm like, yeah, like I kind of know how to handle myself. And it doesn't mean that I'm bulletproof. It doesn't mean that I won't have something happen. It's just that I'm very grateful that I now have this confidence, and it's affected every part of my life. I'll share one more little piece too. This is kind of part of this arc, and I found it really meaningful. It was really cool when I looked back on this. I get back from Thailand, and I don't know if I told you this actually. That's kind of a funny thing that happened. I think the same day or the next day, I told my mom, I was like, I really want to get involved in community. I just kind of want to be part of Idaho. I kind of want to just, I don't know, just something, right? I want to volunteer somewhere or just whatever. She sends me a link a few hours later and says, hey, they're doing auditions for this new play. And I'm like, oh, a play would be super fun. I've never, like, or it's a musical. Like, I've never done a musical in my life. Like, I don't know anything about theater. I'm not a theater kid. Like, I just got back from fighting.
I love where
like,
this is going. Yes.
Exactly. I was like, but again, it was like, that seems horribly uncomfortable. Okay, I found my path forward now. And so I go show up for these auditions. It's for it's the Tarzan musical. And I'm like, oh, Vina Gorilla would be kind of like super nerve wracking. You can imagine like walk around like pretending to be a monkey on stage. I'm like,
Right.
that would really help me like prove to myself that I can disconnect from like what society thinks. And so I show up, and I don't sing, by the way, and I don't act at all. Like, not like, just no experience in any of these categories. And they're like, okay, so go ahead and sing us a solo. And I was like, right now? Like, yep. And so I go pick a song and I sing it. And just like, there's a panel of people watching me just sing in a big old empty room, right? And for those of you that have done theater, this is just old news. But for me, holy smokes, that's vulnerable and scary. I don't even know if I can sing, right? Like, nothing's as vulnerable as singing. It feels so personal. It feels so intimate. And you're kind of just putting it out there. And you're like, and I might sound like a dying cow right now.
And
I
it's
don't
just
know.
you. It's just
Yeah,
you. Yeah.
nothing's helping. And no backup, no choir. It's just my voice. And it was so scary. And then they have me do this little part and kind of read a script. I was like, oh my gosh, that was terrifying. Glad I did it. And I felt very proud of myself. I'm like, yeah. And I couldn't have done it had I not just come off of that high of winning a fight and saying I can do anything. That's really what gave me the confidence. Like, I'm going to show up and just put myself in the most awkward situation imaginable and just go for it. Funny enough, I get a call back and I was like, oh, cool. Like, fun. I get to be a gorilla. And they're like, no, we want you to come back and like consider the role of Tarzan. And I was like, oh, that's hilarious. Like, ha ha, he, like, and it turns out they weren't joking. And I go there and I do the callbacks and the whole time I'm like, and again, list of rules, which I'll read after this. I'll kind of read that list of rules I have for learning. But one of the rules is to play all out. Like, don't hold back. If you're in a new thing, you play out as hard as you can. And so I just went for it. And I acted and I'm screaming and whooping and hollering. And I was like, I've got nothing to lose here. And yeah, ended up getting the part, which, and then it was a decent sized play. Like, it ended up being a quite successful play. And I was surrounded by amazing talent. And again, it was just like one of those things that was so weird and it kept happening. And I kind of felt like God's hand was in my life a little bit here, kind of going like, hey, like, he knew where I wanted to end up. And I think that there was some nudgings along the way and it landed in my lap. I could never in a million years have planned this. But here's what's funny, Adam, is that this whole time, this list of things that I've been working on, one of them was singing. I get the part and the condition is, we want to do this part, but we want to take singing lessons. And I'm like, this is the coolest thing ever. That's what I'm hoping for. Yes, like, absolutely. And they moved me up like 3.5 notes in my range.
Boom.
Like, I could not hit Tarzan's got a high register and I'm a baritone, like a low baritone, maybe a bass. And I'm singing tenor, this whole thing, right? Soloing in front of thousands of people. Again, another rule, have a graduation ceremony.
Yep, that's right.
Graduation ceremony. There was something to work towards. And I logged hours every day in front of this microphone right here, singing. I'm sure the neighbors think I'm crazy because I'm sitting there just like belting and practicing sounds and movement in my mouth. And guess what? I can sing now. Am I the best? Absolutely not. But I have a very competent voice, and I'd be happy to go in front of another 100 people and sing a solo. No problem. Which to
Brunson,
me,
what a story, man. I think about what's really interesting is I don't think you had a goal necessarily. I mean, you didn't have a goal of performing in front of everybody. What you said was, I want to be involved in the community. I want to do something, in my area. And you've got these other things. I don't know, we're both people of faith. And so I think that there is something about, you could call it manifesting in our world. I'm going to say, this is something I'm asking for help for. This is something that's important to me. I maybe even have some talent that I want to explore, but it is interesting because the minute you put it out there and you ask for some help, it happens. And what we've got to be courageous enough is to take that next step. Who knows what it was going to take, but for you to go up and audition, that's a big step, man. I love that story.
Yeah,
that's so great.
It was such a cool, and again, couldn't have planned it myself. Couldn't have found a better situation to push that category of my life. And it happened. And I don't know how or why, but this kind of stuff has kept happening to me over and over where things land in my lap. And I think if I were to share any thought on that, it's that I think I'm open to it. I think God or the universe, whatever you want to call it, knows that I'm willing to take the plunge when a scary thing comes up. Do something new, do something terrifying, do something that really pushes me. Am I getting rich from that? No. I lost money. And that's the funny thing. Again, I think we tend to want to quantify things by dollars and cents. Oh, but how much money did you make from that? How did it come right back to money and make you more money? I'm like, it didn't. It just blessed my soul. It made me a better human being,
enriched your life,
a better husband, a better father. And at my core, what I believe in the most is becoming the best version of yourself. And a small circle outside of that is family and relationships, right? But by building that core really firmly, it's helped me connect with people. I've got great friends from that play that I could never have gotten, fantastic friends that I spend time with to this day, frequently. And, so it's just such a cool revolving cycle. And I'm kind of now and around kind of waiting for the next thing to happen, this next step to happen. So, anyways, would you like to hear this list? Oh, go ahead.
How do you think about, so one thing I'm really noticing with you is confidence has been kind of a flow through here. And it sounds like, 11 years old, starting washing windows, you had something you wanted and you'd go for it. You find yourself at 17 being afraid of, getting in a fist fight. We're all there too. That, that's not pointed at you, but then as you've had these experiences, you're gaining confidence along the way because you put yourself in these situations. I think I just want to touch on confidence there because I have a memory of We were coming home. The last flight we had was from Costa Rica to Atlanta, and Atlanta back to Salt Lake City. And I remember how I was just thinking about our standard life at that moment was we're planned out 3 to 4 weeks out about jumping on a plane, landing in a new city, getting my family of 6 to an Airbnb. I've got a few different, I had now figured out a couple ways to do that. We'd land, spend the night. Next morning, we're exploring, and you're getting into that was our flow. It was landing in a new country, new city. We figured out how to get around language barriers. We figured out how to navigate food. And so our normal at that point was pretty, crazy by other standards. And so coming home, I just remember feeling like what's weird is this standard thing of coming home back to American life, this beautiful life that we have, felt really uncomfortable. I was really concerned about, this normal thing. I have noticed in myself, just because we've pushed ourselves outside of normal experiences, that I've got this kind of, I'll say it, like swagger, right? Like, I don't know what's going to happen, but I trust myself. I trust my wife. I trust God. I trust our family. It's going to be okay. I'm in the job hunt right now, and kind of similar to what you said is, I put down some things while we were out in my journal. That was one of the biggest blessings I had of I just committed to being in my journal every day while we were out. And there was some things I wrote about, okay, so for my next job, I don't want to work for a company that has 10,000 employees again. I don't want, I want to have a team that I work with closely, because those are the things that I cared about so much. I want to be something local that doesn't require me to put a suit and a tie and jump on a plane for 3 or 4 days a week. And as I'm just writing these things down, because I said that, every job opportunity that I've interviewed or just, sat down and talked to some local entrepreneurs about everything that I'm working on is falling into place there. And it's been so easily to dismiss things that aren't, aligned with what I hope and desire for my life. So I think there's just a note there about being willing to put yourself in uncomfortable places, and then watching your ability to handle discomfort just goes through the roof. If you do it, it just gets better and better. So I love that, and I appreciate you sharing that.
And as we're talking about security, right? Why do we want so much money? Like, if you really go deep down, it's like, oh, the reason I want money is because I think it'll prevent bad things from happening to me, right? Oh, if I have tons of money, I can protect myself. Every billionaire has 15,000 guards around them now, and they've got their gated security. Like, it's all kind of illusions of control in a completely unstable world. You're really not that much safer, but we like to think that we are. And the funny thing I started thinking about too, and there's some really cool books on this too, but if we really want security, to me, the safest I can be is Brunson at his best. Like you're saying, if I have evolved to handle things quickly in every category, physically, right? Physical altercations, I have evolved. I am not the same person I used to be. I'm not some boy who's got to rely on, like, I hope I've got good genes for punching. Like, no, I know where my limits are. I've developed them. I can physically protect myself. I'm a fantastic shot, in all these categories in terms of like physical safety. It's not just guesswork. I have evolved to protect myself. And then financially, I don't have billions of dollars in the bank account, but I have a set of skills that are very valuable. But more importantly than that, I have an emotional state that can handle it. You can have all the great skills, but if you emotionally can't handle the risk of jumping into the unknown, like you're saying, the swagger of just like walking into a complete chaos and saying, can I make money here? Don't know. Probably. And then just going for where everyone else is like, oh my gosh, I would never. It's just risk. It's pure risk. But having that swagger, and I love that word, and it's kind of a funny word, but it's actually quite spot on. That's an evolution. That's something you can develop in yourself. And if you want security, true security, become the person who can walk into complete chaos and say, we'll be just fine. If the dollar just fails today, all these billionaires mean nothing. But Adam Stewart's like, nah, I'm okay.
I know figure it out.
I know how to figure, yeah, I can figure stuff out. We'll be fine. We'll find food. Whether I can grow it, whatever. Like, I have so many skills that are so broad and have been developed for dealing with crazy situations that I will just handle it. Chaos is an opportunity. And it's the most predictable thing in the universe is that chaos will happen. And so I just wait around. I'm like, oh, I wait for chaos to occur. And then I trust that Brunson has evolved enough to be able to handle that, and not just handle it, but thrive in that situation. And everyone else flounders. Not everyone else. There's plenty of others, but I'm just saying, for me, I've noticed that. Crazy things happen. I go, it's funny. Like, I feel like really chipper right now because I love chaos. And everyone else is like, oh
I've
my
seen
gosh,
this
what are they gonna
before.
do? And they're freaking out. Yeah.
I recognize that this is chaos. I recognize this. It's an opportunity.
Yeah,
There's
it's an
money
old
to be
friend.
made. There's a learning to be had. There's something
Mhm.
to be taken from this moment. I think that's great. Another word, I'm kind of a big word guy, and you read a lot too, but the other thing I wrote in my journal that I remember seeing is like when I came home, I said, I'm feeling dangerous. Like I'm feeling like I
Oh,
can,
yeah.
I'm a little bit of swagger, a little bit of dangerous. I think that happens by pushing ourselves out of our preconceived, comforts. So I love it. Yeah, man.
I love
Let's
that.
hear your list.
Dangerous.
I'm feeling
Yeah, yeah.
dangerous.
So this is an evolving list, but these are some of the rules. So
Rules for
they won't
learning.
make sense. So yes, rules for learning. Whenever I try to do a new skill, I showed up to go fighting. I've showed up to do Tarzan, be in a musical, whatever it is. These have kind of served me pretty well so far. And the funny thing is I actually didn't even write these down. I had like this mental list, and only a few months ago to actually write these down. So I'll kind of read them and explain them. Wake up every morning knowing it's a beautiful day to feel dumb. That's number one. Wake up every morning knowing it's a beautiful day to feel dumb. And the reason I share this comes from Guatemala. If you ever try to learn a language, folks, what you're going to find is you will look like a raving idiot, like most of the time. And it's so embarrassing. Your ego will die when you learn a language because you're supposed to practice. So there's this abuela that's sitting on the bus with you, and you go, "Hola, ¿cómo estás?" or something that just terrible, and she just launches off in Spanish, and you sit there just blinking and like kind of like this like awkward like that smile when like you'll notice it. They're kind of like that like awkward. Oh dear, I don't know what she's saying, and then there's this awkward silence, and she kind of like looks at you weird, and you go super bien or something like that, and it's just awkward, and then you do it again, and you do it again, and you look like a complete idiot. You feel like a child. I think we get old because we just don't want to ever feel dumb. And so we don't, that's why we run away from new skills, is because we have to look like a child when we do it. We fall down, everyone laughs at us, we look silly. But if you can get over that, holy smokes, the world is your oyster. So, number two is seek your revenge and radical competence. I'll share a story with this as well. I was doing Muay Thai, and this guy he was a pro fighter, right? He was on his way up the ranks, and we sparred together, and he humiliated me. Like, not kind of, like, literally put me in a headlock and just pushed my face into the ground like in the most degrading way possible. It was horrible. And I was so angry. I'm like, I couldn't even do anything. Like, what am I going to do? Like, yell at him? I look like more like a child. Am I going to hit him? No, he'll just knock me out. Like, there was nothing to be done except to sit there and just like marinate my own shame. And that's where I was like, okay, all I can do really is use this as fuel and get stinking good at this. And he might laugh at me or whatever because I'm not as good as he is, but he will not learn as fast as I did. He will not get from point A to point B as quickly. He's all the way in point Z, but it doesn't matter. I will grow so quickly. He'll be like, may not like the guy, but I respect him because he can put in the work and the hours. So,
I
anyways,
love that.
that's what I've learned.
Using moments like that for motivation to keep going. I love that.
Yeah. And I will promise anyone listening, I promise you, whatever you learn, if you're in any kind of space like this, you will have that one person that shows up that wants to make your life a living hell. Like they feel like it's their job. The Hayes individual, right? That's like, no, like this is hard for me. I make sure it's hard for you too. It's almost happened every time. Anytime I've learned anything new in a group setting, just like clockwork, there's always that one person that's just like, I'm going to make your life miserable and remind you in my little world that I'm king. And yeah, again,
It's the
seek your
push down.
revenge.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Seek your revenge. Say it again.
Yeah, seek your revenge through radical competence.
Cool.
Number
Okay, love
three,
it.
play all out. I've talked about that. If you're gonna go audition for a musical, you don't sing halfway, you belt. And I'll tell you what, I did that once and I missed the note and I squeaked in front of a whole audience. But I played all out and I'm proud of myself for it. And guess what? That was the last time I squeaked. But I'm glad that I like played all out on it.
Mm-hmm.
There's number four. It's called making circles smaller, which to me just means you focus on the smallest elements and you get really good at them. I learned this from a book called The Art of Learning, which I recommend everyone read. And so Josh Waitzkin talks about this, that when he learned chess, he became a chess grandmaster. He would focus on moves between just a pawn and a king versus a pawn and a king. And he got so good at that, he mastered every possible scenario. Then he added 2 pawns, then 3 pawns. He worked his way backward in order to really master these like smaller skills. And same with me. Like when I was learning Muay Thai, I didn't focus on flying punches first. I focused literally on footwork. That's why, because my coaches kept trying to teach me like more flashy stuff. And I was like, I don't want to learn flashy. I want to learn incredible fundamentals. And you get so good at those that after a while, the ability to throw a really, really well executed calf kick will feel so instinctive. You don't have to think about it. And really good fighters will watch for when you blink, right? Like
Mm.
when you're first fighting, you're going to be like, you're like watching for head movement and body movement and like, is he going to throw a punch here? And the fantastic fighters, they're timing breaths and they're timing blinks, which is psychotic because they become so dialed in, like their instincts take care of everything else and they can focus their brain on only the most minute things. That only happens when you really dial in and let yourself master fundamentals. And it's tough to do. Like same with singing, right? I wanted to focus on the smallest things first and perfect those before I moved on to trying to do some crazy like voice trills or, riffs or whatever. I'm like, no. I just want to be able to like really hit this note clear. So anyways, number 5, learn from masters and imitate them as closely as possible. This cannot be overstated in my mind. You don't you're not going to learn Spanish going on Duolingo. I'm sorry, folks. Like, it's not enough. And I think Duolingo is fantastic for maintenance. And I'm controversial for saying that, but I've never met anyone that felt like spoke a language that learned it on Duolingo. Not a single person. Even those that have a 10,000 day streak, it's like, nope.
You've got splotchy
Go.
vocabulary at best. I'm with
Yeah,
you.
exactly. And it's awkward and it's weird and it doesn't flow and it's not really skin deep. And learn from masters. So if you're learning a language, that just means any native speaker. They're a master. You and I are masters at English. Well, maybe more you than me. My grammar's terrible, but like, but we speak at a completely competent level. And so if someone wanted to learn English, they could come to us and that we are a master in this. We have our 10,000 hours. Same with fighting. I could go learn at a local gym, and I get that everyone's circumstances are different, but for me, I want to learn from someone who really knew their stuff. So I learned from a guy who done 250 fights, and I was like, okay, he probably knows what he's doing.
That's what I was going to bring up to you, is that there's a reason that you went to Thailand for that. Like you because it's not even just a guy up the street or driving down to a bigger city. Like you totally went after it. Yeah, you live what you preach there.
Yep. And I'll add a little note here that I've actually begun to realize: upgrade teachers quickly. Don't stay with the same guy forever. Try different teachers. Because someone's good at something does not mean they can teach you well. You need someone who's good enough to understand how the system works and to see the pitfalls and teach you good habits. However, love what they teach you and then upgrade. That teacher that I first had, I had him for 2 months, and after a while we hit a plateau, and I was like, I don't feel like he's able to teach me as much as he used to. I found a new teacher, and it really ramped up from there. In fact, my skill like went through the roof after that. And he was a worse fighter, but a much better teacher. So
what gets you to point
I learned
B
some good fundamentals.
Might not get you to point C.
Exactly.
It probably won't. Yeah, yeah.
Yep. So I throw as a caveat now. Learn from masters, but keep upgrading, keep leveling up, keep seeking higher and higher. Don't get comfortable with that same master, because I think, and we like the Karate Kid and we like this idea of like finding your master and like he will teach you all things. But truthfully, I don't think it's super realistic. I think you continue to upgrade as quick as you can and let them and find someone who also gels with your personality and knows how your brain works. And you can find someone who gets where you're afraid and gets where your weaknesses are, and they just exploit them. Oh man, that's powerful.
That's true. We kind of fantasize about sticking with someone for the long term, and there is value at some points, but I think that we need to be pretty cautious of stagnation. If you've got a goal and you're really going after something, those are good check-ins. And I don't know how the best way to kind of do those, but the more you get to know yourself, you'll say, my goal is here and I'm stuck. And it's a good one. I'm going to think about that one a little bit more.
And I think it's comfort. That's my metric. If I'm just feeling like, yeah, I'm chilling, I show up, it's just easy, it's breezy, like I probably need a new master. Like that's become kind of my philosophy. If it's comfy and I feel like, oh yeah, super simple, I'm in a routine, I'm in a like let yourself flow. Flow state's different, but comfort, not good. So then you find a new person to teach you, and I think that really helps you upgrade quicker. Number 6 is use community, leverage it. What I mean by that is we call it the CrossFit effect, right? Yes, I could go to the gym and get fit, but if I go to a CrossFit class and those moms are beating me at my workout and they laugh at me when I want to give up early, you bet your bippy I'm going to be super fit. So I leverage social shame to my benefit, right? I put myself in situations where I'm around people where people are going to notice if I don't show up, with everything. That's why you go move to a place, you live with a Guatemalan family. There is social shame in not getting good at this. And I don't want to get cozy. And so I use my community around me to like help gel me on stuff. If you want to go run, find a running partner. You're just 10 times more likely to succeed. So community is how you overcome motivation. Motivation is finite, it's limited, and you will run out eventually. Some people have a huge reserve of it. I do not.
Mm-mm.
And I know that all I have to do to replace motivation is community. And that will keep me going when the motivation completely runs out.
Yeah, motivation is fleeting for sure. You might feel really excited to put the goal down on paper, but then what's going to keep you to it? Yeah.
Yep.
I like that.
Yep. I don't trust myself. And that's, I like to describe myself as intelligently lazy. I don't like working hard on stuff. I don't like just beating my head against a rock. If there's an easier way to do something, I want to find it.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, that's what community does for me as well, is that they take the work out of it for me. I don't want to have to sit there and like rah myself every day to go out and run. I just want Joe to show up and be like, get your fat butt out of bed. We're running today. And the next day, do the same thing for him. And so that's pretty helpful. Number 7, and this is one that's kind of recent. And I call it let it change you. Like when you learn something new, you want to let it seep deeper than the skin. Become the theater kid. And I did. Like I felt like I became a theater nerd. And it's funny. And I was okay if I didn't stick, but during that time I was like, I'm going to become a full theater nerd. I'm going to become that geeky whatever, which again, I'm a motorcycle guy and a bit of a farm boy, right? That's the Brunson background. It had nothing to do with theater. And I went full theater geek during this time, and I let it change me. I let myself become a new Brunson through that experience. And some people may not like that new Brunson, but I like him. You know
Which
what I mean?
plays right into your first principles there of play it out loud. You know, like just step
Yeah,
into the
play all
moment
out.
and do it. Yeah,
Mhm.
play all out. What you're here, this is what you're doing, so step into it and let it be. Yeah,
Exactly.
those two are really related. I love it.
Yeah, exactly. And when you let it go skin deep and like actually change the kind of person you are, that's where I think the real magic happens. Again, a lot of us want to learn a skill so that we can just put it in a box and be like, yep, I can pull this out when I need it, and it's my little like handy dandy hammer. But better yet, like let it be like muscles, and your muscles increase and get bigger, not just a hammer you keep in a shed somewhere. And some things they won't continue to fit, and that's okay. And you put them, and then you can go put them in a box, but try to see if they fit into you as a person. Become a fighter, join the community, go geeky on it and get weird about it. So yeah, let it change you is one of my rules on that. Number 8, don't fall for the myth of natural talent. I think natural talent is one of the biggest hoaxes on the planet. If you have natural talent, awesome. That does not mean, and like I used to remember like hearing stories like, oh, I lost my leg and I found motivation to become a great motivational speaker. And I'm like, I need to lose my leg so I can be a motivational speaker. No,
Yeah, that's not how that works.
it does not how that works. However, if you have natural talent, awesome, great, you'll do fine. I have natural talent in certain categories. There's certain things that I think if I'm going to be really honest, I think I'm just gifted at. I never earned this. It just happened. It came to me naturally. Other things, completely not. But the things that I'm best at are probably not the things that I was naturally born with. And so the myth of natural talent is that natural talent is an advantage, and I don't think it is. I think it might be equal to or less than someone who is born with low gifts but high determination. And so what's cool is that natural talent is fixed. You have X amount of natural talent. You're just born with it. It's finite. It's limited. But growth is unlimited. It's infinite. And so if you develop an ability to change, an ability to acquire new skills, an ability to like develop systems, right? Like for me, I have systems for learning languages. There are way more gifted people at me to learn languages, but they didn't have to write down systems. I did. So guess what? On the next languages, I'm probably going to learn faster because I had to go through the work
to figure out what works.
Into it.
Yep, and figure out what works for you.
My little brother speaks fantastic Spanish. He sucked. Did it 2 years in Spain, and he was the slowest person. But he developed good systems and good procedures. And he's someone who can do hard things. That's the thing is he's like, I can't rely on natural talent. I have to rely on hard work. I have to rely on grit. I have to rely on perseverance. And those are much more, because those are infinite skills. They can always get better. Whereas you can't really just like add 10 points to your natural talent, bucket. It's just limited. It's like you were born with it or you weren't born with it. So again, don't follow the myth. It's completely fake. If you have zero natural talent, you are just fine, because perseverance will beat natural talent every day, every single day. And natural talent gets you only so far, whereas developed talent, unlimited.
It's the quote. I'm going to butcher it, but it's hard work beats talent when talent doesn't work hard.
Yeah,
I love
exactly.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, if you think about it, the greatest basketball players in history never made it
Hmm.
to the NBA. I am so firmly convinced of this to my soul. The most talented people never made it to the NBA. I'll bet they washed out. I'll bet they were hot shots in high school. They never had to try. They never had to work. They never had to sacrifice. It just came easy,
Hmm.
just natural. It was they were just gifted, right? Just gifted, and they washed out. Some of the highest IQ people on earth are complete failures because it just life came too easy.
Hmm.
Things came too easy. I met this lady. She had 156 IQ, lived like a slob in a broken down house, made a ton of money.
Hmm.
And she's like, yeah. And now I just work less hours and I make my $24,000 a year, but I only work 4 hours, but I have an amazing mind and I can see numbers and she got her accounting degree, like just test out everything. Like it was so easy for her. And yet she's miserable because she never had to work for it.
Hmm.
So if you have natural talent, look at it as a snake. It's dangerous.
Oh, that's a
Like
good point.
use it to your advantage. There's no shame in having natural talent. Don't beat yourself up and say like, no, there's no guilt to it. But do not for a second think it's going to compensate. It will have its limits and it will actually burn you if you don't handle it so delicately. So
Something about the Tom Brady story is pretty interesting to me. We've all seen the pictures of him at the NFL Combine. Granted he played college football, but I don't think he had the talent of some of these top, number one recruits. But
yeah,
and he'll talk about that. That seems to keep popping up on my, news feeds and whatnot. But I've been digging into him a little bit, and he was just relentless about getting better, little bits of improvements, and he's just an example that's coming to mind. But I think that's true. That to accomplish big things, to accomplish, all those dreams, it's just taking a shot and keep getting better and moving on.
yep, yep. Develop the auxiliary skills,
Uh-huh.
and those are going to serve you more than the actual primary skill. Perseverance, hard work, systems, community, things like that. They're worth a lot more than just I was just born gifted. So
Yeah.
number 9 is the last one on my list, and I mentioned this before, but it's find a graduation ceremony. This is one that I didn't really understand until lately, but now I'm like, this is a must. Whatever it is, you want to learn how to ride a motorcycle, awesome. Have a test coming up.
A
You
race.
want to learn, a race, a competition, whatever. Not everyone needs this, and I think at the risk of you don't want to turn pleasant hobbies into these crazy competitions. If it's not that to you, it's not that to you. If you love bird watching, you don't have to go become like the best bird watcher and like sign up for the bird watching Olympics. If it's just something you love pleasantly, it's just a fun hobby. But if you're trying to develop something like, I want to be amazing at this, yes, you have to find a graduation ceremony. You have to find a challenge or a big thing that's coming up that goes, this is going to push me. And I'll use Tarzan as an example. Like I just truly could not have developed my voice as much as I did without the looming, crippling, mind-bending fear that I was going to have to hopefully not squeak in front of thousands of people. Like that's a terrifying thing. And I'm hitting notes that are the absolute edge of my range. Like literally a couple of the notes I was like every day, I was like, man, I hope I hit this note today. I just don't know. Like if my voice does anything wrong, I will not make that note. And it's a critical note. And like Strangers Like Me, right? Iconic song. Everyone knows that they're singing along. And I'm sitting there like belting in a loincloth, of all things.
What a mental image. It's actually available on your Instagram if you really want to see it.
It is. Yeah, it is. So, there's so many funny stories of that too. But like just of all the most vulnerable places to be. And I'm grateful that I had that to push me. Yes, I lost some sleep over it, but even that's getting easier.
Mm-hmm.
I lost so much sleep over that fight. And everyone's like, oh man, are you like restless at night thinking about the play? And I was like, no, I've just done scarier stuff. Like I'll be fine.
Yeah,
Like, and in fact,
right.
I'm so confident that my ability just to be relaxed is the most important thing. So I'm not permitting myself to stress over it because that will diminish my ability more than anything. I cannot possibly stress my way into succeeding at this. I have to walk in and say like, I am Tarzan and sit there and belt those notes and that's the thing too, is I gave myself enough grace. And when I say I missed a note, I'm telling you, I missed a note. Like bad missed a note. Like full blown squeak. Like like that kind of thing during the last dress rehearsal. Right? The one that's like, okay, it's now game time after this. The next night, that's performance time. And we still had an audience for that dress rehearsal. And I just botched it. I mean, completely screwed it up. And everyone's like, are you okay? Like, don't worry about it. I was like, no, I'm fine. Like, and I really was. I think I detached myself. I said, listen, like at the end of the day, all these people that care so much about, I don't know them. They don't know me. And frankly, they're not going to go, oh yeah, remember that one time that Tarzan squeaked on stage? No, no one's going to care. Like they're too busy worried about the pimple on their own nose that they're not going to, like, they can't sit there and think and stew about how I screwed it up.
There's
On
a
top of, yeah.
there's a I don't know if it's just a technique, I guess, that they use in therapy sometimes about catastrophizing. And I think we
Mm,
do that already, but almost just calling it out and saying, okay, what's the worst that could happen? And it probably even better experience is that the worst thing happens. In a Muay Thai
yeah.
fight, you get knocked out, or you take a shot to the face, or you squeak on stage. Those like that's a really good thing, I think, to play out and say, what's the worst that happened? And then as it happens, you're like, oh yeah, I know that, like, I've thought through this. It's just move on. I think that's
Yeah.
actually probably the answer to all of it. Is just like, we're all human, we all make mistakes, and the more we can embrace that in ourselves is you would give. If you and I are in that play and you squeaked, I wouldn't think another thing of it. I'd be like, dude, you got this, keep going. But I
Yeah.
think we don't always give that same grace to ourselves.
Totally. Yeah. And that's the thing is most people would be like, oh yeah, it's smoky, the fog's too thick on stage, whatever. And it's like a little embarrassing. And the other thing too was that I can control my controllables. I'm not a great actor. I think I've become a much better actor and I've become a much better vocalist, but I was like, what can I control? I was like, well, I'm athletic. I'm in good shape post Thailand. And I lean into that. And I was at one point, I screwed up on something. And I got stuck on the harness because they had me flying in on stage, swinging on the ropes and stuff. My harness got stuck. And I'm sitting there during the bows and I can't get my harness loose. I'm like sitting there like, and it's like awkward. And the music's going, everyone's like looking at me, looking back, looking at me, looking back. And finally unclip it. And I was like, and I just went and just sprinted and then did the biggest dive roll, right? Boom. And then my wig came flying off and I'm laughing and everyone just went crazy. And it was like, had I been petrified of my failure and like, oh my gosh, I'm screwing up the flow of the play and I'm sitting there freaking out, I never would have had the inspiration to go and do a dive roll. And, and it felt like, and everyone told me after, like, that was the most iconic thing you could have done, right? Of course, Tarzan comes out and does a dive roll and, you compensate for, that's like such a Tarzan thing. And it was just a funny thing that if you're terrified of what will everyone think about me, and inspiration gets completely stalled out. And so finding that grace for yourself to go, yeah, it's okay. Whatever happens here is A-okay. That gives room for massive creativity, which will compensate for your failures.
And it's funny too, because I think some of our biggest fears are, what are other people thinking about us?
Yeah.
And the truth is, no one's thinking about you. And even like I have really found that out, is that you do big things and no one's really thinking what in this situation, like you jumping in and doing your dive roll, or us living our to our best selves, our best ability. Like that's what gets people thinking. If you're gonna talk about what people think about, it's not the mistake, it's the people daring to go live and do something big. So yeah, I like that. Cool. Well, what's next for you? Any big business or travel plans that you got coming up?
Build my clientele right now, and if anyone's listening and they want to grow a show, start a podcast, hit me up. I'm your guy. So that's what I do, is I help people build shows. But that's the big thing. I'm kind of finding joy in that. I think I'm helping people really get some cool projects going. One of my clients is Martin Fry, who does amazing retreats for youth, and it's just the coolest project ever, and I'm really grateful I get to be a part of it. So that's what I'm focusing on right now, is just helping people get their voice out there and share their message. So, and then beyond that, I'm in a state of trying to stay put. This is the uncomfortable thing. I like moving around a lot, and I'm kind of trying to force myself to stay in Idaho, where there's not a lot going on. It's kind of boring. It's very comfortable, and I see some growth there. So that's kind of why I'm doing that right now, is just trying to stay put and try to get involved in my community and blossom there. So,
Brunson, I'm so glad our paths crossed, on the other side of the world, and I hope it's not the last time. But best of luck to you out there, and I hope that we can get somebody out there to sign up for your service and keep you going, man.
Yes, sir.
All right.
Thanks for having me on the show.
Thanks so much. Talk soon.